In this video help, I'm going to open up the menu and I'm going to show you that we're going to be using the Consignor Report. As you'll notice in here before we start that there's also a Consignor Sales Report and a list view, Consignor List View. They're also tied into using the reports. Let's go ahead and go to the Consignor Report. The Consignor Report, before we get started, typically when you use a report, you're trying to get a complete view or a subset of information that assists you in locating either a product, which is a consigned item, or you're looking at the information related to the consignor as far as finding information about the item or items or on what date they were consigned. And then at the bottom, you're going to see that it's going to do a sub-summary for the totals of the records that are for that date as far as the values that are entered in the fields. And then for the entire report, if you had multiple consignments or multiple consignors, it'll summarize the information for all the records in the report. And how does that work for you? If you're going to do a consignment report where you want to see certain consigned items that you want to pay commissions on, you're going to have to find the items that sold, and they're marked, and that's why these are colored red, because they stick out like a sore thumb. If you drop this down, you're going to see it is the drop down that includes sold in it and all the other different selections that are available for you to search on. In this particular case, if I wanted to see a particular consignor, I would find him by putting in the name during the find. I would start the find first. I'd put in the name from the selection. I would go ahead and then select the solds. And then if I were looking for a specific day, I'd put in the date. And then if it's not a specific date, but somewhere within a date range, for example, if you're doing a consignment where you're going to look for commissions that need to be paid for a period of time, you're going to enter a small formula, which is quite easy. I'm going to show it to you, on a date range. And that date range would give you the records for that particular period, either for the person or for all people in all the consignment records. So for example, if you skip putting the name in and you put sold in just the date range, it'll show you all the sales for that period of time for all consigned items for that period. If that's not clear, you can contact me and I'll walk you through this report as far as how to use it. It actually, after you've used it about once or twice, you're going to realize how simple it is to use. Because basically these two rows here are the information that you're going to be using within the report. You're going to be using the date sold as far as the consignment period and the dates and the sold itself and the person's name in order to define the consignment sold items, the ones that have sold, and then looking for the summarization of those items for each person. This helps you at the period during the month where you want to see who has to be paid and if they qualify for getting paid during that part of the month. And if you need to verify, there'll be a picture at the end of the row so you can see what the item is that they actually have consigned. Let's go ahead and check another thing here before we start that. If you click in here, you'll see that this is the same information that was included in the individual consigned records of what the commission rate is by the consigned item. If you click at the end of the row for each one, you'll see what that particular consigned item is selling for and what the commission is. In other words, you see up here that there is a split commission, and you can also see here that the consignor did not have any fees due, and yet he has not been paid yet. There would be an amount in here if they actually got paid. Now, in this particular screen, these are not editable because it is not something that you want to change from the screen. You just want to read it. You can also see the notes in the notes area that it was in the consigned item record. In case you need to add notes, you can do it from here. You can edit them in this screen. If you run the report during the find and you return from the find, you might not be seeing these headers up here that break down the individual dates and the persons for sold. Clicking this Run Report button will return those headers. Okay, let's go ahead and do a find, and I'm going to show you how this works. Let's assume that I'm going to do the month of July, and of course it's only going to reproduce the sample records that I have in there. There aren't that many records currently in here, but I'm going to go ahead and click the find, and it's going to empty the fields. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick Von Clement, consignor number 1. I don't have to pick the item itself as far as the item ID is concerned, but I could, if I wanted to, I could pick the item ID for this particular person, and you'll notice how it has a 1 in the front of it. That means that's the item ID for that item. So if you're looking at the item, that's item 1 and 2 of the items that are in there. If you had a specific item in mind for searching for it, you could go ahead and click that item into the field and do your find at this point to bring in the record for that item. You can also do this description if you wanted to and type in any part of the word of a description, and it would bring up all the records for that description. Now, what we want to do for this particular report, because we're looking for the consigned records that have sold, I put sold in here, and then I would go ahead and I would put a date range. Now I'm going to say on the iPad and on here, you're going to click one more time to empty the field, and then you're going to go ahead and type greater than, which is holding down the shift key, or on the iPad picking that exceptions key and put in the arrow that points to the right, then an equals, and then a date. And in this case, we're going to do 71/2014, and that gives us the starting date. So it's not 71. Let's take out the extra 1 there. Anybody can typo. So the next thing you're going to do is do a less than, which is the opposite direction pointing, and equals to, and the closing date. And I'm going to use, because I know the 15th is the last date in there, I'm going to do 7/15/2014. Now that encloses the starting date of the 1st through the 15th. So everything that is going to be coming to be viewed will be either sold and only sold for the period through 7/1 through 7/15 for this particular consignor. Now, like I said, if you do not want to look at this particular consignor, you can just go ahead and leave it blank, and then it would do all the consignors. So let's go ahead and perform the find. And you'll see that it brings up the records for that period of time. Now, of course, it's the same ones we were just looking at, but what it's doing is it's summarizing those records by the search criteria that we used. And in this particular case, we had one date for 7/15 and another one for 7/13. If I'd used the 13th for the end date, the second part of that little formula, then only this record would have shown. Now, anytime you do a find in a report and you get the results and you're done with them, always go back up and then click the Show All report. Now, I mentioned before the headers are not showing, so I'm going to show you how that works. If you click the Run, it's going to pop the headers back up so you can tell at the header what period of the time it was for this particular items that were added to the consignment and the consignor's name. The next row, if it were here for another consignor, would have had it here, and so forth down the screen based on the criteria that we put in. But in this case, we put the criteria for one consignor and a date range for sold items. If you had questions and you wanted to find out more information about how to do these reports, contact me through the support site and I'll be happy to walk you through them. Thank you.